A deployment, not an invasion, because language makes slaughter easier to sign. The Galactic Council had voted unanimously. The Deathworld designated soul. 9 would be pacified, catalogued, and folded into civilized space. Its dominant species had resisted probes, destroyed observation drones, and transmitted a single warning on every frequency. The Council classified that warning as posturing. I was Logistics Officer 3rd Class when the armada jumped. My job was numbers, not bravery. Tonnage, rations, replacement bodies. Deathworld operations always ran hot, but projections showed acceptable loss ratios. Nothing sapient survives long under orbital superiority. Soul. 9 broke that assumption in the first hour. Atmosphere thick enough to chew, gravity tuned like a fist. Our landing craft screamed as they descended, shields flaring against storms that behaved like predators. Lightning tracked movement. Winds anticipated vectors. I watched feed stutter, then go dark, one platoon at a time. Command blamed interference. They always do. The surface was worse. Forests that moved. Oceans that hunted. Microorganisms that learned. Our infantry deployed in perfect formation, doctrine drilled into bone, and the planet responded as if insulted. Creatures burst from camouflage and anatomy both, tearing through armor rated for vacuum war. Plants secreted acids that ate composites. Even the soil resisted, swallowing vehicles whole. Then we met them. The humans did not charge. They watched. From tree lines, from ruins older than our star charts, from shadows that did not match the sun. When they struck, it was with precision that made mockery of our sensors. Snipers firing from impossible ranges. Traps layered atop traps. Every casualty felt personal, targeted, studied. They knew our language. They used it to mock us, broadcast on open channels while our officers screamed for order. Leave, the voices said, calm, almost bored. You were warned. Some units tried to retreat. The planet denied them. Launch zones collapsed under seismic surges timed to evacuation windows. Skies filled with ash and something darker. By day 3, the armada argued with itself. Admirals accused generals. Generals blamed science. Science stopped answering when their labs were overrun by insects that built hives out of cooling corpses. The council demanded results. Results came in the form of casualty lists, so long the processors overheated. Orbital strikes were authorized. They failed. The planet absorbed energy like hunger. Impacts vanished into canyons that were not there before. Radiation blooms faded as if scrubbed clean. Humans emerged from firestorms coughing, bleeding, still advancing. They wore no standard uniform. Just layered protection, scavenged tech, expressions carved from loss. On the 7th day, Command ordered full withdrawal. That was when the humans attacked in force. They hit the armada itself. Kinetic launches from the surface, flung by mass drivers grown into mountains. Boarding actions using pods disguised as debris. Viruses that taught themselves our encryption mid-transmission. Ships fell silent. Others turned their guns inward, hijacked. I remember the moment my transport was struck. No explosion. Just sudden absence of stars as gravity twisted wrong. Alarms. Screaming. Then a human face on my display, dirt-streaked, eyes steady. It is a sentence. They did not torture me. That surprised everyone, including me. The humans pulled my crippled transport from the wreckage like fishermen hauling in a net they did not intend to keep. Gravity snapped back into place, stars returned, and weapons trained on me from angles I could not track. I was extracted, disarmed, and blindfolded within seconds. They brought me underground. The facility was not clean, not ceremonial. It felt lived in, scarred by decades of contingency. Walls patched with different metals. Power routed through redundant systems layered like scars. This was not a bunker built for a single war. This was a place prepared for many endings. They questioned me methodically.
Name, rank, purpose,
Fleet composition. Council voting structure. No shouting. No threats. Just patient inevitability. Every lie I told was met with a pause, a glance to a second human, then a correction delivered with unsettling accuracy. They knew more about us than we did about ourselves. I asked why they were keeping me alive. The answer came from an older human, hair gray, posture damaged but unbroken. Because you're going to go back, they said. And you're going to tell them what happened here. I laughed. It broke out of me, hysterical, wrong. No one will believe me, I said. They sent an army. An armada. You wiped it out. We didn't wipe it out, the human replied. Your planet did. We just stopped you from leaving. They showed me the footage. Not propaganda. Raw feeds. Environmental overlays. The planet's response patterns mapped over time. Storms clustering around troop movements. Fauna altering migration paths to intercept supply lines. Microbial blooms targeting waste systems. Sol. 9 was not just hostile. It was adaptive. The humans had not created the death world. They had learned to live with it. To you, the humans said, this is hell. To us, it's home. Days passed. Or maybe weeks. Time lost meaning underground. I was fed, treated, allowed to rest. Always watched. Always recorded. They wanted my fear to settle into something useful. Understanding. They walked me through their history. Not the sanitized versions broadcast to First Contact archives, but the real one. Plague survived by isolating and burning cities. Wars that taught them logistics mattered more than heroics. Near extinctions where only adaptability saved them. Every scar had become doctrine. You don't send armies to death worlds, one of them said quietly. You send questions. You sent answers. When they finally took me back to the surface, I almost begged to stay underground. The sky was wrong. Clouds moved too deliberately. The air tasted alive. We stood on a ridge overlooking a battlefield that had once been our primary landing zone. Twisted wreckage. Half-buried hulls. Bones incorporated into nests. No bodies remained intact. They escorted me to a single remaining shuttle, miraculously functional. They loaded it with supplies. Medical packs. Data crystals. A human engineer leaned in close as they sealed the hatch. You're going to tell them 3 things, she said. First, this world is not for sale. Second, we did not chase you. We let you run. Third. She hesitated, then smiled without humor. Next time, we won't bother. The launch was uneventful. That terrified me more than combat. Sol. 9 released me like a predator that knew it had already won. As I cleared atmosphere, I saw the planet one last time.
Blue. Green.
Beautiful.
Alive.
When I reached Council space weeks later, alarms sounded across every channel. Scanners screamed. Verification protocols failed. An entire armada gone, and one logistics officer drifting back with data that bent doctrine into ash. They asked me what happened. I told them the truth. They laughed. Then they watched the footage. And no one laughed again. Silence followed my report, not because the council was processing grief, but because their models had collapsed. Doctrines refined across millennia had failed against a world that should not have produced a spacefaring species at all. The chamber's air recyclers hummed too loudly. Several delegates avoided looking at me, as if proximity itself were contagious. The council did what it always did when reality misbehaved. They reclassified the problem. Sol. 9 was no longer a death world. It became an anomaly. Humans were no longer a hostile species. They became an environmental hazard. Language shifted, and with it, responsibility. An emergency coalition formed within hours, built not for conquest, but containment. Quarantine zones were drawn. Travel bans enacted. Observation only. No engagement. I was sidelined, medically evaluated, psychologically screened, then quietly reassigned as an asset witness. My survival made me inconvenient. Dead soldiers could be mourned. Living testimony demanded action. They did not listen to me when I said containment would fail. The first probe sent back images that contradicted each other. Human cities expanding into regions previously considered uninhabitable. Infrastructure grown into cliffs, jungles, ice fields. They were not terraforming. They were synchronizing. The planet did not resist them anymore. It cooperated. Then the signal started. Human transmissions reached beyond Sol 9, aimed deliberately at fringe systems. Not threats. Stories. Accounts of survival. Invitations framed as warnings. This is how we live, they said. If you come carefully. Several minor species ignored the council and answered. None of them returned unchanged. Some adapted, learning from the humans, trading knowledge, coexisting briefly before leaving with technologies and philosophies the council could not categorize. Others failed, consumed by environments that punished hesitation. The report shattered any hope of simple isolation. Sol 9 was not a closed system. It was a filter. The council panicked. A second armada was proposed, larger, automated, designed to sterilize the surface from orbit. No landings. No negotiations. A clean solution. I was summoned again, not for advice, but for formality. A survivor's perspective, checked off before escalation. I told them deploying again would unite the humans. They dismissed that. They're already unified, one delegate said. Against us. The vote passed. As fleets assembled, something unexpected happened. Human channels went quiet. No warnings. No taunts. No pleas. Sol 9 vanished from public networks, wrapped in a communication shadow that even council's arrays struggled to penetrate. Scouts reported movement on the surface. Not evacuation. Preparation. I recognized it immediately. Not mobilization. Digging in. The armada launched anyway. It never reached the system. At the edge of Sol 9's gravity well, space folded. Not violently. Precisely. Ships lost formation as if gently separated by invisible hands. Engines failed selectively. Power routed itself into harmless loops. No explosions. No debris. Just fleets rendered inert, drifting. A transmission cut through the chaos, human in origin, broadcast wide. We said next time would be different. From the planet's surface, something activated. Structures long buried rose into alignment with orbital paths. The planet itself became a machine, its mass drivers no longer weapons, but regulators, shaping the battle space before conflict could begin. The armada surrendered without firing a shot. The council's authority collapsed overnight. Species withdrew support, citing existential miscalculation. Emergency charters dissolved. The concept of enforcement lost meaning when the enforcer could not arrive. I watched it all from a quiet office, my role complete. Humanity did not pursue. They did not expand aggressively. They simply remained, an immovable fact embedded in a living world that did not forgive ignorance. And somewhere in the council archives, my original report was finally reclassified. Not as testimony, as prophecy. The collapse of authority did not look like fire or blood. It looked like delays. Committees that never convened. Fleets that never launched. Messages that went unanswered because no one wanted to be responsible for the reply. The council still existed, but only as a building filled with echoes and people afraid to make decisions. Humanity watched and waited. They did not exploit the vacuum. They did not declare dominance or demand reparations. Instead, they hardened their borders and opened narrow corridors of controlled contact. Trade under supervision. Dialogue with conditions. Entry by invitation only. Sol 9 became a place you did not stumble into. You prepared for it, or you stayed away. I was assigned as liaison. Not because I was brave or respected or trusted, but because I was already broken in the right way. I had seen the planet decide who lived. I had heard humans speak without performance. I understood, better than most, that this was not about power projection. It was about survival on terms the galaxy had never been forced to consider. My return to Sol 9 was voluntary. The shuttle descended along a corridor of engineered calm, weather held in suspension by systems grown into the atmosphere itself. Storms loomed at a distance, restrained but present, like guard animals watching a gate. The humans had not tamed the planet. They had negotiated with it. They met me in daylight this time. The city was different from what I remembered. Taller. Denser. alive in ways no council world was. Structures merged with terrain, metal threaded through stone and root, power drawn from geothermal veins that pulsed like arteries. People moved with alert ease, never careless, never rushed. "This place would kill us in a week," I said. A human beside me nodded. "It tries," she replied. "We listen." The talks were brief and unsettlingly honest. Humanity did not want membership, did not want recognition. They wanted distance and respect, and the freedom to decide when either ended. They acknowledged the damage they could cause, and stated plainly they would use it again if pushed. "You mistake restraint for weakness," one of their leaders said. "We mistake patience for morality. Neither is guaranteed." I relayed their terms to the council. There was outrage,
Fear.
accusations of capitulation. But there was also something new.
Acceptance.
Species that had lost faith in collective security began aligning their policies with Sol 9's example. Defensive depth, environmental adaptation, redundancy, survival as doctrine. The galaxy changed, slowly, reluctantly. That was when the data anomaly surfaced. It came from deep space, beyond any known sensor net, detected only because Sol 9 systems flagged a pattern that didn't belong. A convergence of probabilities. A thinning of futures. Humans noticed it first not because they were more advanced, but because they had learned to expect the universe to behave badly. They shared the data. Against council advice. Against precedent. Against self-interest. "This isn't about us," the human analyst said. "It's about everyone." The anomaly was subtle. No explosions. No fleets. Just regions where complexity decayed. Ecosystems simplifying. Cultures stagnating. Technologies plateauing. Wherever it passed, variation died. I felt a familiar dread. This was not conquest. It was pruning. The council demanded humanity stand down, cease observation, avoid provocation. Humans refused. "We've seen this pattern before," one of them said quietly. "It ends with silence." Sol 9 began building again. Not weapons. Frameworks. Instruments designed to study, not strike. The galaxy watched, uneasy, unsure whether to hope or hide. I stood at the edge of a human city, looking up at a sky that was never truly calm, and realized the truth the council still resisted. Humanity was no longer reacting to threats. They were preparing to ask the universe a question it might not survive answering. And whatever was coming, it was already paying attention. The anomaly did not announce itself. It arrived the way winter does on worlds that never learn to store heat. Quietly, patiently, lethal by inevitability. Systems went dull first. Art stopped evolving. Music lost discord. Species that once argued about philosophy began agreeing too easily. Where it passed, choice narrowed. Humanity named it the silence. Not because it was quiet, but because it erased the need to speak. Sol 9 did not panic. That terrified everyone else. They convened no emergency councils, broadcast no ultimatums. Instead, they opened archives sealed since before first contact. Records of simulations that ended badly. Theories dismissed as paranoid. Proofs marked incomplete because the conclusions were unacceptable. I was allowed to observe, not as a representative, but as a witness again. "You don't fight this," a human scientist told me. "You confront it." The silence was not an entity in the way the galaxy understood life. It was a function. A corrective tendency embedded in reality itself, triggered when complexity exceeded some unknowable threshold. Where life grew too loud, too unpredictable, it smoothed the noise away. Balance perfected. The council finally understood what humanity had sensed from the beginning. This was what waited after diplomacy failed, after empires rose and fell, after even watchers would have retreated. The universe, tidying up. Species began fleeing toward Sol 9, desperate, hopeful, irrational. Humanity accepted some, turned others away. Not out of cruelty, but mathematics. Overcrowding would accelerate the silence's approach. Survival required selectivity. That decision broke what remained of the council. Accusations of supremacy, of godhood, of betrayal filled the